We've officially come full circle. At the launch of Diablo 2 Resurrected, a handful of glitches made certain sorceress builds OP. Cold Mastery, for example, accidentally broke monster immunities in the beginning. But now, with the introduction of Sunder Charms, we can do it purposely. Additionally, the double tick glitch allowed us to wreck bosses in seconds with a Firewall Sorceress. And now, thanks to not only Sunder Charms, but new synergies, that build is even stronger. In fact, a number of Sorceress variants are finally able to defeat the endgame Uber boss levels in D2R. And the success of a lot of these builds has a lot to do with an underrated item, which may gain more value as players figure out this strategy. Before you see it, let me know what you think it is down in the comments. We're gonna look at the fastest and tankiest boss-killing Sorceress build today, a build brought to you by Hero Wars. A lot of action RPGs these days have orcs and dwarves and elves, but how many do you know that have aliens and vampires and furries? In Hero Wars, everyone can find a character that suits them best. You can pick Chava if you enjoy chomping chumps in combat, or choose Celeste, who possesses all of the most powerful abilities any woman can have. Kindness and compassion for healing the soul. Dark DPS capable of castrating her foes, and even mood swings. It's easy to start playing, but the real challenge is assembling the perfect team of characters. I figured out that Mojo can't heal teams as efficiently as Grandma Martha can. And this slow-ass brute that I was kind of getting fed up with actually makes a great pair with Isaac, who's fast and can pick up his slack. Hero Wars has over 300 Guild Wars servers and more than 100 million players. But you know what all these other chumps don't have? What I'm about to give you. A super chest with 30,000 coins, 600 emeralds, and 5 dope-ass heroes to catch you up quick. Just check out the link in the description or the QR code on screen and take advantage of that today. Not only is Hero Wars on mobile, but they also have a web version now. Reminds me of those good old Flash games from back in the day. Certainly worth a look. Check it out with my link below and play Hero Wars for free today. And now, back to the build. The Firewall Sorceress is back, and unlike most of my other builds, a lot of the gear is actually affordable. I didn't say cheap, but closer to it. The build focuses on landing Firewall on enemies and forcing them to cook in it. It also utilizes the powerful perks of Energy Shield to help keep us alive. I've put a max roll link in the description for both the top tier version of this sorceress and also this one that I use on Battle.net. Here's a quick look at the skill tree. On the Fire Skills tab, we max Firewall in all of its synergies along with Fire Mastery. From there, we go to the Lightning tab and put 1 point into Energy Shield and the rest into Telekinesis. If you're over level 95, you can put points into Static if that's your thing, but it's not necessary for what we're doing. You could also put a point into Frozen Armor as well, again, not necessary. Or what I would do with the rest of the points is just dump them into Energy Shield. For stat points, we put just enough into Strength to wear Spirit with all of the rest of our gear on. We split our remaining stat points between Vitality and Energy. We do this because we're an ES Sorceress, but we're not immortal. We're certainly going to be taking some damage to our life total too, so it's important to have an even balance. Did you guess what the new meta item is for Ubers on Sorceress builds? Believe it or not, it's Marowak Boots. Always an item with life tap when we're talking about Ubers. It's almost like they planned this shit. But we actually use this item for its bone prison charges. We do that to isolate Mephisto and to stop him from chasing us, getting close, or just running around in general. The wall also distracts him, helping keep our Mercenary alive for longer. Good old Emilio gives us the Conviction Aura from Infinity, which helps us wreck these bosses even faster. We only really need to reach the 105 cast breakpoint, and we can focus on survivability beyond that. I use Hodo and Spirit to meet most of that 105% requirement. I tried out a faceted Monarch here, but believe it or not, the damage from Spirit is quite comparable. You do miss out on the minus res with a faceted shield, but between Conviction and the strategy that we implement out of our cube, we actually have plenty and don't need to worry about it. More on that in a moment. On Battle.net, I use Shaco, but you could also use Flickering Flame. Perfectly fine choice here as well. We use Maras to help with bow and resistances, SOJ, Arak, Mage Fist, the standard ES Fire Sork staples. I also use COH for added resistances in Uber Tristram. My inventory just so happens to be nasty. But yours doesn't have to be this good in order for your sorceress to be successful. Fire Skillers and Resistance Charms are what matter the most. We have a cube in the inventory, and that's because against Uber bosses, I like to use a lower resist wand. While it's not necessary, it certainly obliterates them a lot faster. We swap out our CTA for this prior to engaging with the bosses, and I found that using this strategy also allows us to not have to worry so much about stacking up facets or having minus res gear on the build. I tried different versions with Flickering Flame, Phoenix, again the faceted shield, even a 6-socket crystal sword with 6 facets in it. Theoretically, the best weapon you can have on the build is this, but good luck finding it. This just seems to be the most reasonable strategy. And if your merc survives keeping conviction up along with this lower res, well, it's basically like we're a cold sorceress using cold mastery. We rip through Uber bosses at an absolute breakneck pace. When going up against Mephisto, just be sure to bone prison him first, lower res, and then just let him cook in the firewall. He'll likely aim at the wall, just make sure to keep that up on him, and before long, he's just gonna melt. With the rest of the bosses, you basically just separate them and stomp them, as odd as that sounds. After casting lower res, these guys should melt far quicker than you will by taking their damage, so you basically turn it into a close range pissing contest with this. Just make sure to use a couple of potions along the way to really ensure that you survive. Having a Sunder Charm in the inventory makes it so that these other typically immune minions that approach you don't really pose any significant threat. With practice and strategic aiming of Firewall, the build can actually be very effective in terror zones, even at higher player difficulties. The best strategy there is to simply drop a Firewall down on super uniques and quickly move on. Blaze also can do some work here. That being said, this build thrives at doing quick chaos runs and bail runs, but it's certainly designed to slaughter bosses. When I built this on Battle.net, I actually didn't expect a lot, especially stepping into games with higher player difficulties, but I'll say I was pleasantly surprised. While I expected to just respec back into my old cold sorceress for terror zones after building this, I actually think I'm gonna stay on this build. The only real significant struggle that I've noticed as a difference between this and the cold sorceress is the 5th bail wave at higher player difficulties. These guys are naturally immune to fire, so unless you want to carry around that lower res wand and use it on these guys, it'll actually take quite a while to bring them down. But other than that, it fucking rips. I'm also putting together a PvP version of this build and probably embarrassing some people on Battle.net with it. I'm gonna be doing that on my second channel on Cooley Live. I also uploaded the unedited version of these solo Uber runs on Battle.net over on that channel, so you can get a good feel of what this looks like in practice. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subs on that channel and 50,000 subs on this channel, so if you could help me with that goal, it would really mean a lot. Thanks again to Hero Wars for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check out the link in the description, try them out, and come back here and let me know what you think.